There's a version of you that never existed. Not because you weren't smart enough. Not because the world didn't give you a chance. Not because you lacked the talent or the time or the resources. There's a version of you that never existed because at some point, quietly, without a single dramatic moment, you chose comfort over it. And the worst part? You probably don't even remember when it happened. Maybe it was the morning you hit snooze for the third time and told yourself you'd start the new routine tomorrow. Maybe it was the business idea you kept in your notes app for 2 years, but never actually moved on. Maybe it was the conversation you never had, the risk you never took, the dream you slowly stopped mentioning out loud because it started to feel embarrassing. None of those moments felt like giving up. That's the thing, they never do. Think about someone you know, maybe even yourself, who's been in the same job for 5, 6, 7 years. Not a bad job, not a great job, just fine. The pay is decent. The commute is manageable. The people are okay. And every few months, there's a moment, usually a Sunday evening, right before the week starts again, where something stirs. I thought, is this really it? But then Monday comes, and the familiarity kicks in. The coffee tastes the same. The desk is in the same spot. The routine runs itself on autopilot. And that thought from Sunday? It disappears. Not because it was wrong, but because the comfort of the known swallowed it whole. That's not a career story. That's a human story. And it plays out in every area of life. The relationship that stopped growing years ago, but feels too familiar to leave. The fitness goal that gets reset every January and quietly abandoned by February. The creative project, the podcast, the channel, the book that lives permanently in the someday category. Someday, when things slow down. Someday when the kids are older. Someday when I feel more ready. Someday is the most dangerous word in the human vocabulary, because someday never arrives. It just moves forward, always one step ahead, until one day you look up and realize you've been chasing it your whole life. Here's what's actually happening underneath all of this. And this is where it gets interesting, because it's not about laziness. It's not about weakness. It's about biology. Your brain has one primary job. Not happiness, not success, not fulfillment, survival. And from a survival standpoint, familiar is safe. Familiar has kept you alive so far. So every time you approach something new, something uncertain, your brain sends out a signal. A quiet but powerful resistance. Neuroscientists call this the threat response. It's the same system that kept your ancestors away from predators. Except now, instead of protecting you from a lion, it's protecting you from sending the email, from starting the business, from signing up for the class. The threat hasn't changed in your brain's eyes. Only the context has, and so most people back off. They feel that resistance, and they interpret it as a message. I'm not ready. This isn't the right time, maybe later. When in reality, what they're feeling is nothing more than the edge of their comfort zone, which is exactly where growth lives. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying what makes humans feel most alive. He interviewed artists, athletes, surgeons, chess masters, people who operated at the highest levels of human performance. What he found was fascinating. None of them described their best moments as comfortable. Their peak experiences, the moments they felt most engaged, most alive, most like themselves, all happened at the boundary between what they could do and what they couldn't quite do yet. He called it flow, and you cannot access it from inside your comfort zone. By definition, it lives just past the edge of it. Let's make this concrete, because this isn't just abstract psychology. This is Tuesday morning. You want to get in shape. You've wanted to for a while. You know what you need to do? Eat better, move more, be consistent. Simple enough on paper. But every morning the alarm goes off at 6 a.m., and the bed is warm, and the gym feels far, and the voice says, just today, rest just today. And you listen, not because you're lazy, because your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do, protecting you from discomfort in favor of the familiar. Or maybe it's the side project, the thing you actually care about that you work on after hours, when there's energy left over, which there usually isn't. So it sits, days turn into weeks. You feel guilty about it, which makes it harder to open, which makes you avoid it longer, which makes the guilt worse. The project becomes associated with a bad feeling, and your brain, very helpfully, starts steering you away from it entirely. Or maybe it's the social version. The friendship you've been meaning to rebuild. The apology you've been putting off. The mentor you keep thinking about emailing, but never do because what if they don't respond? What if they don't remember you? What if reaching out feels desperate? It's the same mechanism, different context. In every single case, the avoidance feels reasonable in the moment. It feels like wisdom, like patience, like self-care even. But zoom out 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, and what it actually looks like is a life that stayed exactly the same while you told yourself you were waiting for the right conditions. Here's the research that changes everything. Studies on behavior and adaptation, including work from psychologists at Harvard and Stanford, consistently show the same thing. People dramatically overestimate how bad the discomfort of change will feel, and dramatically underestimate how quickly they adapt once they actually make the move. In one study, people were asked to predict how they'd feel after a major life change, a new city, new job, a difficult conversation. Across the board, they predicted it would be harder and more painful than it actually was. The anticipation of discomfort was almost always worse than the discomfort itself. Read that again. The fear of doing the thing is almost always worse than actually doing the thing. But most people never find that out, because they turn back before they test it. And so the fear stays intact, untested, unchallenged, growing a little bigger every time you let it win. Think about the last time you did something genuinely outside your comfort zone. Maybe it was years ago. Maybe it was a presentation you were terrified of that actually went well. A trip you almost didn't take that turned into one of the best experiences of your life. A conversation you dreaded that ended up bringing you closer to someone. How did it feel after? Not during, after. Almost everyone, when they look back at the moments where they pushed through the resistance, doesn't say, I wish I hadn't done that. They say, I should have done it sooner. They say, why did I wait so long? That gap between the life you're living and the life you could be living that's not filled by talent. It's not filled by luck. It's filled by the accumulated weight of all the moments you chose discomfort over comfort and kept going anyway. The people who actually reach their potential are not a different species. They are not fearless. They are not immune to doubt. They are not built differently. What they've done, what separates them from everyone else, is they've changed their relationship with discomfort. They've stopped treating it as a stop sign and started treating it as a signal that something worth having is on the other side. The entrepreneur who's built something real didn't feel ready when they started. They started anyway. The person who transformed their body didn't wake up one day full of motivation. They showed up on the days the motivation wasn't there. The writer who finished the book didn't wait for inspiration. They sat down at the desk and they wrote bad sentences until the good ones came. They didn't do it because it was easy. They did it because they stopped waiting for it to feel easy. There's a particular kind of pain that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not the pain of failure. It's not the pain of rejection or embarrassment or falling short. It's the pain of looking at your own life and realizing that the biggest obstacle was never the circumstances. It was never the economy or the timing or what someone else did or didn't do for you. It was comfort. That quiet, soft, completely reasonable feeling trap that kept you exactly where you were while calling itself rest. The comfort trap doesn't take your potential from you violently. It doesn't announce itself. It just keeps you warm and still and fed and okay until one day, okay isn't enough anymore. And by then, too much time has passed. But here is what I need you to hear before this ends. You are not too late. The version of you that could have been that version is not gone. It's waiting. Right at the edge of what makes you uncomfortable. Right past the resistance your brain sends up every time you approach something real. The question was never whether you were capable. The question is whether you're willing to be uncomfortable long enough to find out. Start today. Not with everything, not with some massive overhaul that burns out by next week. Start with one thing. One conversation, one rep. One page, one email you've been avoiding. Feel the discomfort. Sit with it for 5 seconds, and then move anyway. Because that's where your potential lies. Not someday. Right there.